Hi, folks. This is Paresh Motiwala from Boston here for the Professional Development Virtual Group for. And today we have George Walters from Microsoft, who is going to be talking about working at Microsoft and a whole bunch of things like certifications, the disability at Microsoft, and he is also very instrumental in having a lot of these SQL Saturdays here in Boston area being brought to fruition and success. Please, without much ado, and we have overcome that technical difficulty. Please welcome George. So, George, your screen is being shared, and I will now go on mute, and I will be monitoring
Excellent
questions and answers, and the recording is also going on. So,
fantastic.
This after this, okay? Thank you, George, and it's all yours now.
Thank you very much, Paresh. And hi, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good day. This is George Walters from Microsoft. To be clear, this is my presentation, and this is my perspective from 13 plus years as a field employee. My Twitter handle, @GO_Walters. Feel free to reach out to me there, and my email address if it is important. Thank you. So quickly, just a little bit about myself, as I mentioned, 13 years at Microsoft. I've had 3 different roles. I actually joined as a support engineer, supporting SQL Server to be flown out to customer sites when they had difficult issues and help resolve them. That turned into presenting workshops, and all along through that, there was just so much to learn and so much that I did to help people that I came in touch with. Anytime I could upskill people when I was in their presence, that was part of my job, but also I enjoyed it very much. I did that till 2012, and that's when I moved to a technical pre-sales role. So I was helping salespeople and helping our customers understand why they should adopt our technologies. So the previous role was more they had it, and I was there to help fix it or upskill them on it. And this particular role, starting in 2012, was more to say, hey, here's the new features in SQL Server, big data, or Azure Cloud, and why you should probably adopt them. The final role, which I just started last year, was helping partner companies of Microsoft, and Microsoft is very much a partner-focused company, to adopt our cloud technologies to modernize their software that they are selling to end customers. So I put in here a few things about myself. I like crossing group boundaries. Many of my roles before Microsoft, I'll just say that rare was it that I could cross a group and talk to somebody else and work with them on any projects. Many places seem to have silos, at least they did back then. So I enjoy crossing boundaries, talking to other people. What are you doing? What does your job entail? And so I'm going to try and replay some of that, what I've learned over my years at Microsoft, to you, the audience. Currently, I'm actually on a diversity hiring team. I'm one of the leaders on it. And that's just for us to get out there and help people understand Microsoft. There's a lot of thoughts about Microsoft being 44 years old out there. We have a long history, and there's been a lot of change recently. So we want to get out there and let people know what we're about, and that we'd like to get new people in to help us be successful. I've had a total of 22 years in the data platform space. So back in the day, that was like Sybase and Oracle. Went into Microsoft SQL Server and kind of stuck with the Microsoft platform since. So from a technology side, that's a bit about me. And then the Azure Cloud experience for the last 6 years. Before I was a computer technical type of person, I was a mechanical engineer. That's what my degree was from college. And so if you want to talk about molded plastics or thermodynamics of a power plant, happy to do that as a side conversation. And of course, I have a wife and 2 teenage boys, and I didn't put there, but a cat and a dog. The picture shows me looking over my laptop with a bunch of stickers, and one of the stickers I like is the unicorn with the cat holding the Microsoft flag. This came from our product teams after we had some, we'll just say some new enthusiasm within Microsoft. and just shows how proud we are of where we've come. So I have the usual disclaimers here. This is my opinions. I am giving you my perspectives on Microsoft, and so take it with that sort of context. We're going to talk through some of Microsoft's recent history. What are the different types of careers Microsoft has? Perhaps as we all move forward in life, we all are always learning. And what are the kind of places you can go to gain more skills, especially if you want to get into a company like Microsoft? We'll talk through what certification exams are about just at a high level, and then we'll walk through diversity and inclusion. And so finally, basics, listening and supporting others. You know, just as a human in this giant world of ours, we should all be doing that and just helping each other become better people. So that said, hopefully I can go forward. Okay, so the mission at Microsoft: empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. That is truly cut and paste. This is our mission statement for the last, I'd say, about 5 years. You know, 20 years ago, making sure Windows was on every desktop and things like that. This is where we are. This means we are not just a software company. We are a company that's out there to improve people's lives. That's what I take it to mean, and hopefully there'll be some evidence of that out there. So, okay, that sounds great. And Microsoft, we've been around for 44 years. There's 140,000 people working here. So how are we, Microsoft, going to get closer to that mission where we can get out there and help and empower every person on the planet and organization on the planet to achieve more? Well, recent history is important. 5 years ago, as of February, we got a new CEO, Satya Nadella. He started at Microsoft in 1992, worked his way up the ranks. If you go and dig up some old videos on our Channel 9 site, you can actually find him talking about Windows NT and development on that. And he worked his way up through Server and Tools and the SQL Server group and eventually became CEO. So one of the things that he has impressed on us, and I say it this way because organizations are built of people, and people talk about groundswell up. In other words, the people at the bottom try to work on the organization from the bottom up. And then there's also leadership working on the organization from the top down. Satya is very important in terms of striking the tone and the approach that we as a company should take. And so that mindset, they call it a growth mindset. Whereas in the past we might have been, and I'll just be transparent, Microsoft was fairly arrogant in the past, and we've made some mistakes. And so everybody makes mistakes, and the real answer, the question is, how do we respond to when we make a mistake? So the idea is, let's learn from them. Let's learn what our customers are doing. Let's learn what the people are doing and what's important to them, and how can we together improve ourselves, help each other, and then in that end goal, helping organizations and people on the planet to achieve more. So that's just a little bit of that at a high level. I do have links in here on our values as a company and our work culture. I'll just say that the idea is collaboration, kindness, and making sure that we're doing the right things for people. We have a very robust giving campaign when it comes to charities, and so all of us are encouraged to take part in that as well. And then finally, partner focus. I put that on there because Microsoft started out as a very small company. They decided they needed partner companies to help implement their software. So think way back in the day, Windows, and then maybe SQL Server, and then the development tools. There were a lot of companies that you took those pieces of the puzzle, built solutions on top of that, and sold it out. And that helped drive Microsoft's revenue. And I'm going to talk to that because that is still the case today, and we have a renewed focus around that. And my role being helping partners upskill and modernize is part of that. So this discussion is apparently about working at Microsoft. So I guess the first thing is, where are the jobs, right? Are they hard to find? And so what I did was I just took a couple clips from our careers.microsoft.com site, and it apparently seems that worldwide we have, we'll just say, thousands of jobs. And the United States seems to have the bulk of them, but by no means is it the only place where jobs exist. Engineering, which is developing software, is huge. Services, so that's things like proactive support and implementing, huge. Sales, and then on down from there. And what we'll do is we will talk through what these different areas mean. We will talk through what are the kind of jobs that they are from my perspective, and then hopefully you'll get a good idea for yourselves what you might like. Because in the end, we spend a lot of time at work every day, at least most of us. We should like what we do. We should enjoy it, and it should fit our needs. That's a big factor in life. I've matured over the years, and I'll just say when I was younger, working all the time seemed like a great idea. And with a wife and children and other pressures in life, perhaps work-life balance is important. And I'll say that Microsoft does value its employees and gives us that sort of flexibility. So with that, let's kind of move forward a little bit. These different types of jobs are in various places. I have talked to on this slide where in the world they generally are, even though we do have jobs in various geos around the world. So when we're talking about engineering, that's software development. We are heavily biased on that in terms of Redmond, Washington. That is where our headquarters is in the United States. So at the moment, there's 2,499 open jobs. That's pretty amazing. There's a total of about 45,000 people that work in Redmond. So that gives you some context. A lot of our product development is there and program management. So all the wonderful things that get announced, such as new features in identity or in the cloud or Windows hyper-converged appliances, which just got announced, that's where a lot of the people that develop that stuff reside. For sure, there's also global development centers. So we do have centers in India and China, Europe, the UK, and various other locations where we do have software development. I personally live in Massachusetts, and down the road in Cambridge, next to Boston, there's some software development there as well. So services is things like consulting, implementing the pieces of the puzzle that we build, right? So SQL Server, the cloud, Office 365. We have a services arm where we can help implement those solutions. We also have what's called Premier Support, where that's either for development purposes, helping proactively improve development practices in a company longer term, or let's say helping with migration assistance, that sort of stuff. And that's different from reactive support, where you call into the phone queues and say, help, I need XYZ issue fixed. Those folks are in many locations around the world, but generally speaking, near Redmond, in Texas, in North Carolina for the United States. And then, of course, we have in Europe, the UK, and China, and India as well. Sales, that's worldwide. So we need people in all these geographic regions to help sell our products. We have both inside salespeople, where we have a couple of centers for that, such as in Redmond and in Ireland, that I know of, and I'm sure there's others. And then there's outside sales, where people actually go and so-called knock on the doors and say, hey, let's talk about this product or this set of products or these solutions. Customer, what are you trying to do, and how can we intersect and say these products and solutions that Microsoft has might solve your business problems and help you, customer, either make more money, have an easier time operating your business, or other things like that. Business programs and operations. So think of that as, marketing or, other sort of programs where we're trying to get out there, running that Ignite event or Build event that we have. That's our outside events. Those are generally in Redmond. We do have a retail arm. Microsoft started up the Microsoft stores about 12 plus years ago, and those are out there. So there are certain locations around the world that you can go to a Microsoft store and go and see our products directly. Of course, our partners are very valuable, so we have retail partners that help us there. But these are specifically Microsoft jobs at Microsoft stores that we're concerned with. So Microsoft's a software company. Why do I have hardware engineering here? Well, shockingly, we have a couple things there. You may have heard of the Xbox gaming system, where of course you have a lot of mechanical components such as those controllers and things like that. We also have HoloLens, where we put up holographic images in front of you when you put on that headset that helps do virtual reality, right? So there's a couple of locations out there. I just encourage, and the rest of these we'll talk through very briefly, but careers.microsoft.com. You can filter by country or not, but you can filter by type of job. And if you do that, you can click on hardware engineering and it'll tell you where these jobs are located. So that's a little different slant is, where are particular jobs? If your passion is finance, that may be in Redmond. And let's say you want to do legal, yes, that's probably in Redmond. Again, there are exceptions out there, but some of these jobs are a little more Redmond focused because there's so much leadership there. And then some of them are just customer facing, such as the technical sales roles. That's one of those that I had, things like that. So let's talk about these different areas. So corporate is an area where I know a couple people. I'm not heavily in depth there, but they are the typical groups that run the company. So you have legal teams, right? There's a lot of contracts Microsoft writes with other companies, whether they're buying our products or whether we're having suppliers, human resources, finance, marketing. That's a whole entity unto itself. And again, that's generally in Redmond, Washington. So that's a lot of those sort of soft skills are needed in those jobs. While we are a very technical company, those people generally don't have computer science degrees. Heck, even myself, I do not. So just talking to the audience here, you do not necessarily need a computer science degree to join Microsoft. In fact, you don't even need a technical degree, especially if you're thinking about some of these other fields. When we're talking about engineering, so this is, again, circling back, software engineering, developers, the program managers, in other words, the people that help rally sets of developers together to work on a program, such as, oh, it's time to do Windows 2019 or SQL 2019, things along those lines. Releases out to our Azure cloud or to Office 365 or Dynamics. So those people are generally in Redmond. Those sorts of jobs, I'll be clear on this, some of them will say when you go to that careers site that you might need a degree. I also know that there's plenty of people there that have gotten jobs, not even just recently, but over time, that have no degree. Quick story, somebody that I chat with periodically, he just helped release the hyperconverged infrastructure for Windows 2019, and there's been a big announcement recently. Well, 22 years ago, he was standing in New Jersey pumping gas, and he decided to take an MCSE exam, which was the exam back then, and did an interview at Microsoft and managed to get in and managed to become a developer and then worked his way up the chain. He actually had a field sales role for a while, and now he's back in program management. So those sorts of things do happen on a regular basis. It definitely helps if you show initiative. It shows, especially in this day and age where I'll say it's easier to learn, to go and skill yourself up as you can, and then get some projects if you can, and show your skills. So that's engineering at a high level. And I just want to say something else. Microsoft has recently, in the last, I'd say 5+ years, greatly embraced open source. So if you're thinking, well, I like Linux and Java, that's good. We actually would be looking for people like you, because historically Microsoft hasn't been so friendly towards that. For 5 years we have been. We might have a little ways to go, and there's room there for people that know all of those great technologies as well. When it comes to sales, I spent 5.5 years as a technical seller. So for that role, for that sort of role, I'll put it this way. I was there knowing the greater data platform. So we're talking like SQL Server, Power BI. Hey, customer, why are you running on competitive platforms like Oracle or Sybase or DB2, whatever? Maybe you should adopt some more modern technology. Maybe your applications can be migrated, things like that. So that was a bit of my role. And I want to say it this way. I had been a technologist for so many years beforehand. I kind of shied away from sales for a while. And a veteran seller told me this. He said, if you are enthusiastic about something that you like, you have a passion for something, you're telling somebody about it. Let's say it's even something in the home, like one of those crazy Alexa devices or something like that. Oh, it's the greatest thing ever, does this, that, and the other thing. That's actually selling, even though you may not be getting a commission off of it. The enthusiasm and passion around something that you like and sharing it with someone else that's sales in a high level. And I was a technical seller, which that was basically it. I would state facts. I was excited about the product because I genuinely thought it was great and saw it do wonderful things. And I would just present to our customers, and they made their choice, whether they wanted to or not, for their own reasons. Sometimes they would and sometimes they wouldn't. That's fine. That's their choice. I did my job. The salespeople that I worked with, generally, they held a personal quota that was a significant fraction of their income, for lack of a better term. And they were very motivated they were given a set of accounts, and they were given this quota, which is a large amount of money that in terms of value of product they had to sell during the year. And they had to go figure out which companies needed this stuff or didn't, and how to get it sold within them. So as a technologist, this was a very different skill set than I had. And so watching these people, I found it amazing because they had the sense of who to talk to in the various companies, right? They had to go through procurement, which are the people that buy stuff. They had to talk to the people that would use the stuff. They had to talk up the chain and talk about, maybe CFO and say, hey, look, you'll save money if you go this way. Yeah, you got to spend $1 million up front, but you'll save $3 million down the road. Are you willing to make that investment, right? That's a skill. And I've even seen it to the point where walking out of a meeting with one salesperson, it seemed like he smelled the air and said, you know what? I think there's $2.3 million here. And I'm looking at, that was fresh to the technical sales role. And I looked at him like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but let's see. And sure enough, in the end, after a couple months of negotiation, that company purchased like $2.1 million worth of our products. And so I was, that's a skill. My skills are more technical. That's a people skill and a money skill. So that's a bit around sales. And more recently, Microsoft's made heavy investments in technical sellers, so cloud solution architects. Can you draw that big picture and get information from the customer out? What are they doing, and what are the pieces of the puzzle that cause them the most pain? And see if something that we have, or us plus our partner solutions, can help them. So, because at the end of the day, I like helping people. And if it's in the sense of, hey, you're an organization, your people are frustrated because of a product they're using, and I've got something that can help them, it would make me feel very good to have them reduced frustration by having better tools or better product or processes, things like that. And that's where we roll into customer success. So sales is kind of like the front end, where it's, okay, customer, they are on 10-year-old technology. Hey, you should modernize. Why? There's many reasons: security, better features, all that fun stuff. And then, once we convince them of that and they start doing it, well, we can't just drop the ball and call it done. The modern world is based on consumption. So that means in the olden days, we would license software, sell it at big 3-year agreements to big companies, and the salespeople would be like, "Well, that was good. Now we're done." And the company would have to figure out how to implement it and use it. Well, for many years, Microsoft struggled with seeing software not used, which leads to later on sales not happening because they're like, "Well, didn't use it. Why should we buy it again?" So customer success is the organization that helps customers adopt the software that they bought. So that's what that's about. A lot of cloud solution architects, whether it's Office, whether it's Dynamics, whether it's our Azure cloud, that are there for larger organizations, especially to help them adopt the technologies. For smaller organizations, we try to build out our documentation, I'll say in recent years, so that it's far easier to learn it yourself. How do you do these different things? How should I, draw up my infrastructure? We're trying to push that out there so that we are not the bottleneck to you utilizing our stuff. Services, we talked about this a bit. So consulting services, building products, solutions out of the products we sell, and proactive support, that's premier support. That's like a big support contract that some organizations buy, and it might be not too big, but sizable. You get what's called a technical account manager to help manage the spend on that, and then they go in and figure out, okay, you're going to do these different projects during the year, customer. How should we have our engineers help yours so that they have a smoother transition, an upgrade, new rollout of something, things along those lines. Think of like an Active Directory upgrade, for example, or SQL Server upgrade, maybe migrate to the cloud. Those are all things where a lot of people don't have those deep skills, and our people can help along that. And I was in Premier support. I definitely enjoyed that. Back in my day, it was like how to tune SQL Server so it's more economical to run. Again, people saw fairly instant progress with some of the things they did based on what I taught them. And that was a very good feeling. I'm like, oh boy, I'm helping. So that's kind of nice. We do have a research organization. If we want to talk about credentials, if you want to be in Microsoft research, you probably should have an advanced degree, and those sort of jobs will tell you that as they need it. There's a bunch of researchers in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We also have them in the UK. Like I say, around the world, various places where we do have researchers. And these are the people looking at, advanced algorithms, artificial intelligence, also maybe into medicine and other vertical industries, right? So Microsoft in the last 2 years has gone vertical in terms of our sales force and our customer success workforce. We also need to make sure that our solutions have an answer for those industry-specific needs. So if it's in government, where you got various regulations, maybe healthcare, the privacy rules, or even geographical regions like Germany, where the privacy regulations are super strict, France, etc. China has its own set of issues. So we want to gather enough people from enough different backgrounds so that we see and can answer these questions that people have for us from these different areas. And then the researchers help build out, I'll just say, the cutting edge stuff that might become products or might not. But that's a worthwhile investment that Microsoft has figured out. The Microsoft Technology Centers, this is a field organization as well, so to speak. And when I say field, I mean outside of corporate. That means people who are customer facing. So Microsoft Technology Centers, there's I think about 40 something around the world. They are locations where we bring companies in. We have architects on site that are veteran architects for architecting software and solutions and things like that. And we can whiteboard different things with the customer, get them out of their location, get them thinking more openly about what their business is and how they could solve their problems. And then at the end of engagement like that, 1, 2, or 3 days, have a plan for the go forward, right? And that's an investment Microsoft makes. We we bring companies into the Microsoft Technology Centers. That's a free resource. So if you ever have a chance, definitely get to do that. Also, out of those technology centers are in-person training sessions. So if you're fortunate enough to live near one, we do, the MTC has educational sessions periodically, either by the architects or through partners of ours. An example of which is happening today in my location, they call it Dashboard in a Day. This is how to sit down and learn how to use Power BI and get some insights within some data set. And people are welcome to bring in, some subset of data, hopefully scrubbed, so it's not violating any privacy issues. And then they can drag and drop with the tool and figure new stuff out. And then likewise, there's other sorts of things like what is the modern workplace? How do these modern Office 365 and Windows 10 features help an end user in a company, right? Various subjects. And then finally, there's operations. And the operations group, I'll just say, the word operations generally means the mechanical and logistical operations of a company. So in terms of Microsoft, we're talking about who runs the buildings, who runs our data centers, who runs, right, our cafeterias, all this kind of stuff. And some of them are, subcontracted out to other vendors, but that's the operations. And those are the people that keep the underpinnings of Microsoft running, so that whether you log into a website or whether you walk into an office building, it's there and it's running and it's optimized. So that's the background on the different types of jobs that I've seen at Microsoft. So the real question for you in the audience, and this is just something to think about deeply, what is it that you like in a job? Again, I mentioned it earlier. We spend a lot of time at work. It's a lot better if you enjoy what you're doing and it fits your lifestyle, right? Do you want to be in front of a customer? And I'll put it this way. I used to be a little shy about that because when I was younger, I was a little bit more shy. Now, I just, if you like me, that's great. If you don't, that's fine. But being customer facing is kind of nice because you get to meet new people, you get to talk to them, they're human beings and they have business problems. And if you like that sort of interaction, that might be something to think about. So there's a lot of different types of customer facing roles out there, and we'll talk through some of that. Do you like travel? Different jobs at Microsoft or have different travel requirements. So those will be, and that will be noted in that careers.microsoft.com site per job. I'll say the corporate roles, like engineering, things like that, you'll probably be working in an office. That means getting in your car or transit, whatever, get yourself to the office every day, come home at night. I have a work from home role because generally I'm customer facing. So if I need to get in front of the customer, I go to the customer site. If I need to do a remote meeting, I do a remote meeting, that sort of thing. So that's a work from home sort of situation. And then there are global or regional roles. So Microsoft has, I'll just kind of talk about the sales teams. We have geographies, and there's multiple geographies in the United States. We have Canada, we have Latin America, we have per country geographies as well. Oops, I just moved, sorry about that. And it's important to note that the travel will be dependent on the size of geographic region you're in if you are in sales or if you're in services, for sure. I mentioned here, consulting is heavy travel. The general thing I've seen from many people, I did not work in Microsoft Consulting Services. I worked in Premier Support. The travel expectations can be high for some of those roles. If you're in consulting, you're generally on a customer site somewhere within your larger geographical region. And if you're in the US, that could mean it's Monday morning, time to get on the plane and fly to the customer, or Sunday night, depending upon what the customer wants. And then Friday afternoon, Thursday evening, if you're really lucky, you're flying back home and you're home for 2 or 3 days. That is a lifestyle choice that some people enjoy, and it's a lifestyle choice that other people will not enjoy, and that could change during your career. So think through that. But boy, there's a lot you can learn being out there and building software and working in a different area than the place where either you grew up or you've been working for decades or tens of years or ones of years. It's an interesting thing to get out there and travel a little bit, but there is a little bit of a burden. And then the global or regional roles. So while we do have districts for sales districts, I worked in the Northeast district of the US. So that generally meant once upon a time north and east of Connecticut, all the way to Maine, north and east of New York City. My travel wasn't too bad. If I had to drive 2 hours to go see a customer, maybe 3 at the worst, that was it. People in the Midwestern United States, they generally had to be on a plane to go visit a customer. So they might be on 3 flights a week. And by flights, I mean to and from. So that's one level of travel. But these global, and that's a regional role. So I was in the Northeast region. Global roles, we have these people called global black belts. They are specific, have a specific subset of knowledge. Let's say IoT within manufacturing, or medical billing within healthcare, or something like that. That's a skill they have beyond the technology that they deal with. Those people, maybe we don't need one of those per each of our regions. So maybe there is 1 or 2 of them for the United States, for example. They'll have to travel as the need arises for that kind of, sales cycle. Spend a day or 2 at a customer here, there, and everywhere. And, that can also be very fulfilling, but also there's travel needs with that. So that means if you go into careers.microsoft.com and look at various jobs, some will be like 0 to 25% travel, and that can ramp all the way up to 75+% travel. So that's about, again, what do you like in a job? That's the travel variable that exists. The next one is risk for reward. I talked about sales a little bit. Some of the role names are account executives. That's like a high-level relationship through a set of accounts, somebody that deals with that. Solution sellers are generally work in a matrix form underneath the account executive. So they would be for Office 365, for Azure, for Dynamics, for Windows Desktop, those sort of solution sellers that have their own quotas underneath the overall account executive with their quota and scorecard metrics. And then services sales, we have to sell services contracts periodically to get the consultants to actually work. So those people also have some sort of quota across some either geography or some set of accounts. And there's a risk there, right? These are roles that if you have the skills to talk to people, figure out the business that your customers are in and talk to them and can influence them and get the right resources in front of the customer to convince them to adopt technology, and that sort of thing I just described, that might take 5 to 8 months. This is a great role. The rewards are high. If you achieve your quota, you're going to earn, I'll just say, significantly more than the technologist that's helping as a technical seller. But the risk is much greater too. If you don't achieve that sales quota and you underachieve year over year, there's a high chance that you should probably go somewhere else and work somewhere else. There's a lot of flux, shall we say, for some people in that sort of organization. I've also seen people who have worked for 20 years in that sort of organization because they had those skills, they knew what they were doing, they figured out, okay, I'm given this $8 million quota, I'm going to go out there and talk to these types of people within these roles. They knew how to go so-called hunt for those prospects and figure out if there were opportunities, and then filter down to where there was opportunity and where there wasn't, and just work on the ones where there were to achieve their quota. So that's that kind of role. Again, risk and reward. And then, what is it that you like in a job? Do you want to work in an office every day? That's a question. Some people enjoy the office camaraderie, so to speak. having coworkers at the next desk they can talk to, etc. Those sort of jobs. We have, I'm going to go backwards here. Support, which is like the phone queues, help, something's broken, please help me, Microsoft. Those people are in cubes in the various support locations. That's also a great training ground for people, I must say. I know some people have bubbled up from there and now they're in charge of, SQL Server performance or something like that. MTC, the Microsoft Technology Center, we talked about that. So these are people who are within an office building that have these briefing rooms and a group of 5 to 10 people or so that collaborate together to present great information, the art of the possible to customers. That's what that role is about. Engineering, software development, a lot of those roles, even though it's the year 2019 and we do have great remote tools, and I do see people work remotely, many of them do every day go into an office and work. The statistic I heard on yesterday's Visual Studio launch webinar, which, by the way, go ahead and check that out. Scott Hanselman presented. The thought there was 21%, I believe, of our engineers do work remotely. And so what's cool is there's a feature in Visual Studio where you can do coding together, even if one person's on a Mac, the other's on the PC, and you can highlight the row of code for somebody that's across the world even. It's kind of neat. But nevertheless, even though we do have great remote desktop tools, etc., a lot of people there, the in-office immediate problem-solving skills that can help in engineering, there's a lot of desire there for people to be in the office. And then corporate, so whether you're in legal, you're in finance, chief financial officer, those leadership roles, there's a lot of having those groups together. And so, for an example, I'm in the partner organization. So in the U.S., I'm in what's called one commercial partner, and the leadership there is next to Redmond in a city called Bellevue, and they're just in one particular building. And within a couple of floors, people can go to each other's desks and talk through things. So that's a question. Do you want that sort of interaction or work from home? That has its own challenges. To be transparent, I decided to drive into the office today because I have a dog that barks a lot. So here I am. That's one challenge. Another challenge is, the kids are home from school. Oh, okay, I just got interrupted. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a kind of lifestyle that works well. And for others, it might be a little frustrating. So that's like, okay, so that's, how you work. And then what type of work? So all the way from coding, and I put consulting services under coding. That doesn't mean you have to be like a C# developer. You could be just the person that knows how to install and run SQL Server and tune it, right? That's not really coding, that's configuring, right? But those sort of roles, your hands-on, technical, deep, those sort of roles. Engineering, do you want to be hands-on, deep technical? Do you want to be a higher level of technical? That's architecture. So of course there are architects within engineering. I should have put under their consulting services as well, because there are consulting services architects, because there will be those needs for, if we're walking to a giant, Fortune 100 company, we better have somebody that knows what a giant Fortune 100 company's infrastructure generally is, so they can draw the diagrams and put together what's there and what's needed, and then bridge the gap, right? So engineering, there's architecture there, like, how do we architect Windows or SQL Server? And then consulting, how do we architect the solution for this customer? And then, of course, I put in there technical sales or cloud solution architect. In general, I'd say those are higher level technical roles, 200 level. If we're going to say 100 level is a generalist, all the way to 400 level is full depth. Technical sales and cloud solution architect are generally 200 level with some deep dives in between for various areas, but not 400 level in a very focused area. And then, do you want to be customer facing? We talked about that a bit. Do you want to get out there and help problem solve with the customer? That's like a cloud solution architect role, maybe technical strategy. My role is technical strategist. On the partner side, there are account teams and the account teams are what's meant by that is the sales teams, the account executives, solution sellers. There's another role called account technology strategist, which is a broad technical role for those sort of accounts. And then technical sales is like a subset of products where you're technical on the sales side. And then support. We've talked about this a couple times. Help, things are broken. And then under support, I put premier support, even though that is under the services organization. That is a support role. You are helping either fix or skill up a customer in an area on something they own. That's generally what that's about. Whoops, did I go too far? No, I did it just right. So when it comes through all of this, I'm not sure how people feel. If you're feeling overwhelmed, please don't. I also once upon a time was pumping gas one day. I eventually went to college. I became a mechanical engineer. After 6 years, I decided I should go to night school for programming. I did. And then eventually, after many more years and many jobs, I got to Microsoft. The path isn't always straight, but you can do this too. And in the year 2019, it's very easy because we have so much online learning available. So I put the word certifications here, but the reality is this is self-study. I have a blog post here, which I put up in December, The Privilege of Teaching Others. And I list in there various websites that have great free training and then some paid training links as well. The free training links like edx.org, edx.org. There's also learn.microsoft.com. You can go to that. We have documentation that if you've been around Microsoft a long time, looks so much better than it used to years ago. So if you go to docs.microsoft.com, there's what's called learning paths, and you can click on those. You could do like Azure fundamentals to just figure out what the cloud's about. You could do mobile development. I mean, there's so many different paths in there. And you get little sandbox environments to work on it and study yourself up. I highly encourage anybody on the phone, if you haven't done anything with the cloud yet, try for the Azure fundamentals. 9.5 hours of webinars and a little bit of sandbox. You do the walkthroughs, and you can actually go take an exam, AZ900, and you'll actually have some cloud experience, so to speak, because in this world, the cloud is big. All right, so that's my little vote for the day. So why should we get certifications? Many people can do very well without certifications, but if you're looking for a job, it's just another badge to put on the resume and put in front of somebody and say, hey, I took the time outside of work to go and study up to make sure I understood the full spectrum of an area rather than just what I experienced already. So this took a bit for myself as well to learn, because when I got to Microsoft as a field engineer, they're like, okay, you got to go get your certifications. I'm like, oh. I took the time at night and on weekends and whatever to go and study myself up. I learned some aspects of SQL Server in that case that I never knew before, and then I could take the exam. And there was one time where one of those things I learned, it actually came into use in a customer, and that was notification services. So that's the kind of stuff where it can be useful later, just having that background knowledge. And then, of course, you may not be 400 level in it, but at least you'll know what it is, maybe know where it plugs into in the big picture, and that can help customers. And then here's a fun fact. On average, Microsoft certified technologists earn 15% more than their uncertified peers. Well, there may be other factors at work, but having that there and having done the effort to upskill yourself and then take the exam, that's an investment that you're making in yourself, whether it's a Microsoft certified, whether it's you're going for a degree, things like that. You're showing initiative, and again, back to Satya Nadella, having a growth mindset, learn it all instead of know it all. My mom always said there's something new to learn every day, and as I grow older, very true, and this is just a perfect example. And if you keep learning and show that you have been training yourself when you go to look for a job, those are the kinds of people like to hire. They want to hire somebody that doesn't have everything already, but that can be trained and is willing to learn. Okay, so with our last few minutes, I want to talk about diversity. Diversity and inclusion is the phrase, and the world is very big. The technical world is very biased. The demographics out there, which in recent years, big technical companies like Microsoft are finally publishing, show that Microsoft, for example, is a little bit more than 25% female. Well, last I checked, the world is about 50-something% female. So there's a gap. And likewise with different demographics, different ethnicities as well, backgrounds. And then if you think about it in a big picture sense, if we're supposed to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, we need some of those people that are from all those different backgrounds to help us do that, to open our eyes to what are the issues out there for these different groups. That's what this is about. Fast Company did put an article out, why companies who hire people with disabilities outperform their peers. There may be a few factors there, but for sure, just if we think about the basics, enabling people who have some level of disability but have a lot more capability allows that capability to shine. We want to do that. And by the way, we as human beings who may or may not have any disabilities, we should try to learn and just ask the questions. Hey, how's it going? How can I help? What do you need? Those sort of questions. Some people are shy, but a lot of them will answer you, oh, if only this or if only that. And I think a lot of that research has factored into why Microsoft is going the way we are. The Americans with Disabilities Act started back in about 1990. It got signed into law. And a funny thing happened. They actually put ramps into the curbs and the sidewalks almost everywhere to help people with physical disabilities move and roll around and be able to use subways and all this other stuff in the United States. Wow, what a concept. A whole set of the population that maybe people didn't see before could now be seen because they would stay in their house. They couldn't get anywhere. Now they can get places. Now they can get that job and maybe be a productive member of society. Side effect? People who are moving, let's say, crates of soda into a store, well, now they don't have to jump the curb. They can roll up that same ramp. So it benefits everybody. Also, people who have a tough time lifting their legs. If you think about it this way, these little programs to help people that are disadvantaged, so to speak, can help everybody. All right, and then Forbes, more evidence that company diversity leads to better profits. So I'd encourage you all to go and read up on that article. There's a lot there. Companies who are diverse are more profitable. So it's the right thing to do. There's been news in recent years about artificial intelligence and image recognition and things like that. There's been some embarrassing things out there, and Microsoft and others have done things that weren't so great because the people developing some of that stuff were not aware because their team was not diverse enough. One example I heard of through one of the building managers is that the automatic faucets, you put your hand under it and the water turns on. There's a certain brand that, for lack of a better term, dark skin doesn't show up to it. That's not good. That's in fact a major failure, right? You're cutting out a huge section of the population there. And the publicity from that is super embarrassing. But it just shows that, well, maybe we should have developers who are not just white people, for lack of a better term. And then finally, the new generation. I grew up in a generation on the cusp of where inclusion was not there. I'll just say you kind of had to fight for yourself to get ahead, and there wasn't a lot of hand-holding along the way. People who are younger have a lot more open mindset, and I think a lot more advocacy in their mindset towards others, especially people who are from historically underrepresented groups. Those people deserve to have the same opportunities that any of us do. So another article, the difference between diversity and inclusion. So diversity is, okay, let's try and hire the right people. Let's make sure we're doing that. That's sort of a front end motion. Okay, we have a problem. We don't have enough people that are, enough females, maybe enough people of color, things like that, people from poor backgrounds, whatever. But then there's inclusion, and inclusion is a culture thing. And what I mean by that is, well, once you hire the person in, do they feel like they belong? I heard from somebody else.
George,
Yes, please.
George, just a time check, 4 minutes, and there is a couple of questions there. So
Sure. I'll run through
going
this
to ask.
quick and then we'll get that going. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You
So,
are a gentleman.
so I heard from somebody who is from a diverse background. On their own, they testified that they joined Microsoft about a year and a half ago, and they felt comfortable and they felt like they belonged at Microsoft, even though most of the people around them are not like them. And I think that's a testament, and that's something that we all strive for, and they have it as a requirement within Microsoft for the last 2 years, diversity and inclusion and retention, to make sure that people feel like their voice is heard. Different people have different styles, and make sure that we accommodate that. When you're in doubt, wherever you are, advocate for somebody. If somebody, for whatever reason, talks over somebody, feel free to raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to hear the rest of what they're saying. And then just be that broker of kindness. Privilege, lack of a better term, I had a pretty good background. I didn't have to dodge bullets growing up. There are people who have gone through many different things, and we want to have a kind attitude, because if somebody gets frustrated, there may be some underlying reason why. We can help them out. And then finally, a nice link on how to be an ally. So just to recap, hopefully we got through most of these items. I got a little bit of action page, and then let's open it up for those questions.
So the question is about certifications and such. So do we get these books from, and so on? So
Okay. If you go to learn.microsoft.com, that's where a lot of our certifications are listed, and they will list the resources that are recommended. You don't have to get books necessarily. There's online training. A lot of it is free. In fact, almost all of it is free at some level to learn what you need to know to get the certification. There are books out there. Those cost money and they got to be shipped. And those will be listed under each certification for what is recommended for that.
great. And the other one is, so I think this like Mariana Gonzalez and Diana Gonzalez, one of them is asking, we don't have too much time, but do you believe that bloggers have a greater chance or advantage when applying for a job? And the other one is about trying to get a Power BI certification. Now, one thing that I was hoping, I don't know if you said that or not, maybe I blanked out, but the events.microsoft.com, where you have these kind of trainings which are offered free,
Yes.
the Power BI dashboard in a day,
Yes.
Kubernetes services, these are 20, and there's a very huge chance that is in a major metro close to your home, maybe 3 or 4 hours driving distance stops. I'm lucky I'm in Boston.
They do have webinars as well, though. There's a lot of, they call it MTC Live, LIVE, for some of those events where they do broadcasts as well. And then if you go back to the blog post I have on my site, georgewalters.wordpress.com, and go to that December post I have, there's a lot of webinars, a lot of online training that's totally free. So if you have an internet connection or go to a library and get one, you can learn enough to go and take those exams.
So I think that should just be about it. It's 1 o'clock, folks, and thank you for attending. George, as always, thank you for, oh, wait, somebody has a hand up here. What happened? Okay, nothing. So here's a quick thing. Thank you, George. I really appreciate that. And I think, eventually meet with you one of these days soon. So thank you. A whole bunch of people saying thank you to you.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's time, and I hope you all have a good day and feel free to reach out.
Cool. Thanks, folks. Okay. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of the day, guys. Bye.